Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
It is picked up by the Lions. Coming back right side, 25. Picks up a block at the 30. It's at the 40.
Drink it in, drink it in. Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
Rolls to the right. Stafford throws deep. Got a man out there. Enzo. Caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Marvin Jones. Stafford!
Drink it in, drink it in.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Cornbread.
Drink it in, drink it in, drink it in, man.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Detroit Koolaid Cast. We serve up that Kool-Aid to the Detroit Lions fans so you guys can drink it in.
Drink it in, man.
I'm excited for this episode. There's so much to talk about, so much optimism going on with the Lions, from the coaching staff to the players. Obviously, the offseason, but it's a great time to talk football. And I'm really excited for our guest that's on this week. He comes on monthly, time to time. The guy's a busy man. But me and him have not chopped it up since the NFL draft completed on air. We've sent some texts, we've talked, we've given our opinions. I think we're both pretty excited about what the Lions did. Sports Illustrated All Lions, the legend, Logan Lamorandier here on the Koolaid Cast. Logan, how you doing this week?
Oh, great. Better after that sweet intro. The legend, huh?
You've reached that status, my man. You come on here, you've got good takes, optimistic, intelligent. We love that here on the Koolaid Cast. And man, like I said, we got to talk NFL draft on this show. I think, we're going to serve it up for the people. I got some questions for you. I'm sure you're going to have some quick hot takes for people, some very interesting responses. Before we take our break here on this first segment, I want to give the people the Oakrey draft versus the Lamorandier draft. I know me and you both made our picks live on the clock. We'll serve those up, give our quick opinions on why we did what we did. Maybe we'll have to put that out to a poll. And in the back half of the show, I want to talk to you about this rookie camp that went down, get your thoughts on that, and bounce some kind of big picture questions off of you. So as I always say here on the show, we can't mess around. We got to get right into this, talk some football. You ready to do this?
Oh, yeah. Ready as ever.
Logan, let me ask you this. I mean, like I said, I texted with you. You seem pretty optimistic. Give us your big picture view of what the Lions did in this draft. Brad Holmes, Dan freaking Campbell. Like, what'd you think overall?
Yeah, so I think big picture, I was very happy with how the draft played out, just because you see a lot of high potential players, and these aren't just like great athletes. And I think maybe it was Campbell who said it himself, or Brad Holmes, I forget, but it's exactly the takeaway I had immediately after the draft is the Lions went after these players that are very athletic, and typically those are your higher potential guys, but they're also just great football players. They show up on film and they can do a lot of things. And to me, I just think they didn't reach for anybody. All the picks were like, oh yeah, like that's where that player was supposed to go. They're not just worried about needs and, oh, we had to fill this position. I think they kept true to the board and picked the best player available. And yeah, my board was maybe slightly different, and we'll go over the picks I would have made. But overall, I just was like, man, what a difference compared to the last regime where they were picking players who it was more of like the opposite, where these players had high floors but low ceilings just due to limitations they had, or they're just great leaders or high football IQ type of guys, but they had some issues on the field. And with Holmes, I just feel like they drafted a lot of really good athletes, but also I think high floor as well, because the guys they got, for the most part, were all great football players at the college level. So I'm excited. I was really happy with this draft. And I think Brad Holmes falls in line with more of my draft strategy, much more than Bob Quinn did.
Well, if you're doing what Logan Lamorandier is thinking, you got to be doing something right. But I think everybody was on board with Sewell. I still really can't believe he fell to 7. That was tremendous on so many levels. Big player, add to a strength on the offensive line. All the fan base seemed to be behind that. Obviously, the front office was excited about it. So, I mean, there's not much we need to talk about that one, but let's go ahead and work our way through. I got a couple questions for you. So, a lot of the fan base, was on the side of JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, there in the second round. Pretty surprised that he lasted into the 50s. A lot of people had him going mid-first round. He ended up being there. Obviously, the fan base was all about needing and needing to totally change the linebackers. The Lions went with Levi Onwuzurike, guy me and you had talked about, kind of second DT on the board. What do you think, both live when it happened and then now looking back as that kind of decision? Is that one to look back on, or do you like having Levi in the fold?
Yeah, so at the time, I was fine with it. I still am. It was actually one of the picks I probably wasn't super high on. Just with Onwuzurike, the flashes are there on tape. There's no doubt has a very explosive first step, is very disruptive and just like violent hands. And he plays super aggressive and is really fun to watch. And maybe my hesitations with him came on him playing a lot of out of position, where basically Washington plays like just their best player at nose tackle. And Onwuzurike is 290 pounds. It's like that, not your typical nose tackle. So I think he'll probably look a lot better as more of like a 3-tech, gap shooter, and even like a 5-tech defensive end, that 3-4 defensive end type of player. But again, he's a little on the older side. He's 23 years old, redshirt senior. The production was never truly there, but you could just see flashes of greatness from him. And that's what excites me. And really there was no one on the Lions defensive line other than maybe Deshaun Hand has a quick first step and is athletic as well. But in Patricia's defense, it was always just like 2-gapping and trying to hold blocks and contain 2 gaps. Whereas Onwuzurike, I think if you just let him get after the quarterback or, on run plays, kind of shoot gaps and just knock people over and keep the linebackers free, I think he's going to look really good. But yeah, JOK was definitely very interesting. I wasn't as high as him either, I guess, but I still had him ranked above Onwuzurike. But again, he's kind of like that tweener where it's like, all right, well, he's 220 some pounds. Can he be a linebacker? Is he more a safety? But overall, Onwuzurike, I am totally fine with the pick. And I think it makes me feel better because there's a lot of other people out there, draft analysts, that had him ranked, as a potential first round player, or maybe, the top defensive tackle on the board. He was actually my number 4 defensive tackle on the board. I actually had McNeil ahead of him, who we'll talk about here in a few.
Good stuff there. Like I say, for me, it was a bit of a surprising pick. It's not a guy I took in mocks, but when you hear the kid talk, when you see what he does, when you kind of think about, a team that's rebuilding, getting a big tackle on the offensive side of the ball, and then getting a big defensive tackle to kind of move around and be able to do some things with the type of mentality and the kind of kid that loves football, I've kind of really fallen in love with the pick and just really interested to see what he does on the field, as well as, how he integrates in the community and becomes kind of one of the new leaders of this team. I'm really excited, and I don't know if you've heard my new nickname, and I don't know if it's stuck yet, but Big Denim for Levi might have to be what we go with. I love what he can bring in the middle of the defense and his nasty mentality. So I'm with you. I was leaning towards JOK because I like that versatile linebacker, and that guy just pops off the film when you watch him. But I can understand why the Lions would go with the big beef here. Now, let's talk about, the skill guys. Everybody wanted receivers. Oh, we got to get a flashy receiver. We don't have any receivers. We got to add some more weapons. I mean, how many times we heard that in Detroit? Like, I know you were a Jalen Darden guy. I was a De'Ami Brown guy late in the process. De'Ami Brown was there in the 3rd round. Jalen Darden, I believe, 3rd round, went in the 4th to Tampa Bay, I believe. So it's like, talk to me about those 2 players, but the Lions, me and you had a little back and forth. You didn't seem too high on St. Brown. So you said you would have rather had Darden. I kind of would have rather had De'Ami Brown, but the Detroit Lions fans are loving them some St. Brown there in the slot. Kid might play from day one. What do you think about those three wideouts?
So yeah, no doubt. I think St. Brown can come in and start at the slot right away. I do think he'll be productive almost immediately, especially because he's almost like a veteran receiver coming into the league with just his route running ability and his physicality and the way he plays the game. But of all the draft picks that Holmes made, you look at it and he's not going to fly by anyone. He's not overly athletic. And, when I watched this film, I was like, he drops the ball a fair amount, but then at the same time, he'll come down with some contested catches that he shouldn't be making either. And I just don't think his run up to the catch is all that great. I mean, it's good, but it's nothing elite like I would like in a slot receiver. And that's what Darden had going on, where, yeah, he was small, but he was one of the most electric players in the draft, could make people miss and just could do a lot with the ball in his hands. And that's what I prefer. But, with St. Brown, I think he's pro ready and he can come in and contribute right away. I just question, long-term, is he going to be a guy you can just really build around? And it's tough to get that in the fourth round anyways. So I'm not knocking the pick too much, but I know we had already discussed this, offline. And between St. Brown, I think I had him ranked as my 116th overall player and he was taken 113th. So again, he was drafted right around where I thought he should go. So I can't really complain about the value. And it is a little nitpicky that I'm saying, I got to have Jalen Darden over him. And then De'Ami Brown, he's kind of an interesting player because it's more of a projection. His route tree, you look at it, he just ran a lot of deep passes, just benign routes, and he did well doing it. And that's always nice to have. But the Lions really, I think, needed a slot type of receiver for this year. And I know you've heard me preach off season long, but they don't need to reach for needs. So I think St. Brown can play both inside and outside. He's not limited to just the slot, but this year he should fit in nicely and hopefully has good production because you see a path that he can do that.
I'll go ahead and pull the curtain back for the people. So when me and Logan got to talking about this, of course, I'm sticking up for my Lions. I'm saying, man, what a great value in round 4. Like St. Brown, he's got some Golden Tate. He's got some Steve Smith in him. He can run inside. He can run outside. The guy catches up over the top. He can sneak behind you. He can make little plays. He's got that toughness you look for. And we know Logan Lamorandier is an athlete guy. He wants athletes. He wants guys that have shake. He wants guys that can get up over the top, outrun you, all those types of things. So we're going back and forth. And I did have to beat you up about, Logan, I'm the guy that has the ultimate man cave, the draft room with players by position and type and all these different boards. But the Logan Lamorandier board is becoming a life of its own. We got 120 guys ranked from A to Z, and that's the gospel. I remember having to give you a little bit of junk about that as well. So I got my rankings, you got your rankings, but come on, this was a great value. And again, on the Koolaid Cast, we bounce around. Like I went and bounced to the fourth round receiver there instead of talking about our big third round pick, which I know you got some opinions on, and that's big fella McNeil, another guy that wasn't really on my list. But I love the player. This guy's a big old bowling ball from his legs to his shoulders. He's thick, he's athletic, he's a penetrator, not just a gap holding slug. But I know you love Milton Williams, athletic freak, tested out of the blocks. He's more of a get after the pass or move him around the line type player. You love his scores. You love his shuttle. You love all that good stuff. McNeil's a football player, man. Again, wasn't my first choice, but I am falling in love with this guy as well. I hope he just tears it up, disrupts in the middle, and creates great things for the Lions. So tell the people a little bit about your man love for Milton Williams, but maybe why you're loving another big-bodied pick by Brad Holmes.
Yeah, so Lee McNeil, outside of the Sewell pick, I didn't think Sewell should be there at 7, but he was. The Lions got him and couldn't be happier. Outside of that pick, McNeil was my second favorite pick, and that was just due to, I told you earlier, he's my second rated defensive tackle, and it's just because he's very unique with what he can do. He's an elite run stuffer. I think he was PFF's like top run stuffing interior defensive lineman last year. And do you think he's just going to be like your typical nose tackle, 320 pounds, just, plugs holes? But what's crazy is that he's 30 pounds heavier than Onwuzurike, and he still had a faster 10-yard split. And he still has that juice to get off the line, and just overall a great athlete. And it would be so nice to have a nose tackle that can not only play the run, but if they do pass, they can actually get to the quarterback. And that's what McNeil is. And that's just really rare. That's difficult to find. And so I know Milton Williams, I had a little bit higher, and Milton Williams ended up going one pick after McNeil. And it was, I'm sure everyone's seen the video by now of the Eagles draft room when they traded back wanting to get McNeil, and then the Lions took him, and they were left as Milton Williams with the consolation prize. But Milton Williams is a different type. After the Lions took Onwuzurike, Milton Williams is probably redundant because they're both a little bit undersized for defensive tackle, probably more of the 3-tech, 5-tech, whereas McNeil is your true like nose tackle, or he could probably be a 3-tech if he wanted to with his quickness. But Milton Williams, just watching his film, he kind of came on late in the year and just was dominant. And you can just tell his quickness off the line and just wrecking people, strong. And it's just the length of Milton Williams was probably the biggest concern. But I mean, really, McNeil wasn't too much, if you look at the arm length, isn't too much greater. But I really like both those guys. And McNeil was a guy I was picking up all the time in like the 4th and 5th round of my mock drafts, being like, I don't know how this guy's still here, but here he is, so I'll take him.
Nice. Well, like I said, another player I'm really excited to see on the field, him pairing up with Levi, as well as I'm just cannot wait to see what Sewell does in that offensive line. So lots to think about. I mean, I'm right with you. I thought it was a great draft. You look back now at the mentality and kind of where they filled. You can't hate it, both long-term and for this season. Get to see these guys on the field. It's going to be really fun and something different here in Detroit. Guys with personality, guys that have some juice, people that can fill these important holes on a football team, and I'm really excited to see it. So we won't talk about every player. I've got some questions here later, but right now, I mean, before we take our commercial break, we got to have the dueling drafts, and that's the Oakrey draft versus the Lamorandier draft. And this is me and you making picks live as they happen. Me and you don't cheat. We don't like wait it out and then think about it. Look at who was. This is like when the Lions are on the clock. We are looking at our boards, looking at who's available, and making the picks live. It's very different, Like I remember back in the day, my buddies, they would always come back like a week, month, year later, be like, I would have took so-and-so, or you had to know this guy was no good, or you even forget who was available at the time. So picking live is really the only way to do it. So I'm going to give my picks, and then I'm going to give about 30 seconds to a minute of why I'm so excited about the guys I would have drafted for the Detroit Lions. You'll get to do the same. And like I say, we might have to put it to the people to sort of see who won the dueling mock drafts. Are you ready for this?
Oh yeah, I've already posted mine on social media, and I've seen the responses I've gotten. So if we duel, you might beat me.
Oh man, it's always a fun exercise though. So I'll be quick with it. Like for me, Penei Sewell was a slam dunk. Took him at 7. I did take JOK there in the 2nd round. I felt like he was a versatile piece, both at linebacker and if you want to move him around as a chess piece. I like that. Gave me De'Ami Brown in the 3rd with the first 3rd round pick there. With that 2nd, 3rd rounder, I was kind of looking. I went into this draft feeling like the safeties were just a debacle. I felt like unless Tracy Walker becomes all world and Will Harris figures out how to play football again, and they just got nobody else. So I went with Jefferson, the kid out of Indiana there at safety. I felt like he had a lot of good ball skills, made some plays, turnovers. Just seemed to be a really good value there late in the 3rd round for me. With that early 4th round pick, I just looked at the board and I said, hey, we didn't get Pitts, but I feel like I still want to pair somebody else quality up with TJ Hawkinson. So I went ahead and got Brevin Jordan from And I felt like this kid can play. Every time I turned on a game, he was just making catch after catch. Davion Nixon there, right after that, when the Lions traded up, that's what I felt was best value. He seemed to be still on the board there in round 4. I like him as a player. I hadn't taken a big body interior player, so I thought that was good value. And then I had to wait all the way to the 7th, and this was a hard one for me because there was like some corners I liked. There were some other players, and it was like, screw it. Just give me Dylan Moses, who I know has his issues, but I also know that a year ago, he was like a round 1 or an early round 2 guy. Now he's going undrafted. Are you kidding me? I still need another linebacker. I got a versatile piece in JOK. Give me that leader. Give me that guy can put in the middle of the defense, make him have the calls. That's Dylan Moses to me, who went undrafted to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So those were my picks, Logan, right there. I got a couple linebackers, big old tackle, gave me a receiver, and then, like I say, might be luxury picks with the tight end, but also gave me the safety, turn the football over. So that's where I went.
Yeah, so I like all your picks too. I would have been fine with all those, and then so my picks, I went, number 7 overall was Penei Sewell. Again, I've talked ad nauseum about how he was my dream pick, and it actually happened. So I was super pumped about that. And then the second round at 41, went Azeez Ojulari. And I know he had some health concerns that kind of probably pushed him down the board. But when you look at the Lions defense, I think it's going to be more multiple, but they're calling it a 3-4 base defense. And then you look at the outside linebackers, like the rush linebackers the Lions have in the defense. And I feel like they don't really have your true quintessential type of outside 3-4 linebacker. So that's why I went with Ojulari. I think every year I pretty much fall in love with, a bendy edge player who can really turn the corner. And, the Lions always pass on him, but who knows what the medicals truly are with Ojulari. So with that, it's like, I don't really know. We'll see how it plays out. But Ojulari was in my top 20 prospects, so I would have liked that value there. So third round, the Milton Williams pick, I would have picked him over McNeil if, obviously I didn't pick up Onwuzurike in my draft. So I would have liked Williams just with his potential. And then in the third round pick, that was Jabril Cox. So I couldn't believe Jabril Cox was still hanging around. I thought he could have been an early second round pick. Now his film against the run is pretty bad. It's not great. He's got a long, but in a pass league, you have to have linebackers to cover, and there's many true cover draft. That's why I was more than happy to go with Jabril Cox at the end of the third round. In the fourth round, the back-to-back picks at 112 and 113. Here's one I probably wish I had back. So Rashad Weaver, defensive end from Pittsburgh. I just really liked his film. Whenever I watched the Pitt film, I'm like, this guy's pretty good. And then looking at his measurables, had a great 10-yard burst, had a great 3-cone, which I think is huge for defensive ends. And again, maybe not a perfect scheme fit for what the Lions are doing, because it is more of a 4-3 defensive end. But I think with how multiple they're going to be, they could probably find a spot for him. But pretty much, I think it was like within a day of the draft ending, it came out that he had a run-in with the law. So yeah, there was red flags there that I didn't know anything about. But again, we were picking these players at the time of the draft. So that's what I went with. I didn't want to cheat the people and change my pick. So that's my explanation there. And then Jalen Darden was the pick after him. I would have went with that wide receiver just due to the things I mentioned earlier. And then lastly, in the 7th round, I mean, you're basically just picking undrafted free agents. When you're the third to last pick in the 7th round, you're just basically getting a guy that's either going to be undrafted and just securing his services. But I went to Darius Hutcherson, who's a guard from South Carolina, and he did go undrafted. But knowing my affinity for athletic players, he's a big-bodied guy who's super athletic, and again, I think has sky-high potential that I wouldn't mind taking a chance on. So that was my draft. If I would have live picks, those are the guys I selected.
Interesting. I like the honesty. I like, some of the value you got there. I also love the fact that, like you say, as you see Jabril Cox fall, you're just saying, man, I can't pass this guy. He fits a need. You know, that's kind of the draft process. And you got kind of the other way where you take a guy like Weaver, who was a guy I liked as well, and you felt like this was a need. You hadn't taken a D end at that point. And then, like you say, you can't really go back and undo if he does have some troubles. That's why the live picks are so great. And I like a lot of the things you did there. I really do. So we'll have to find out a fun way to kind of just gauge this. But like you say, if you have opinions on those drafts, you can find me on Twitter at Derek Oakrey. You can find Logan at Lamorandier. Also check out all his articles, Sports Illustrated, all Lions. I know he's been doing some fan questions. Lots of questions is pouring in. So are you hashtag Team Oakrey or hashtag Team Lamorandier here on the pick? So we'll have to see. But two really good drafts, I think, both by each of us, and then by Brad Holmes, which is one that really matters. So Logan, let's take a break, get our great sponsors in here, and we come back. I just want to give you some rapid fire things kind of about the rookie camp, but more so big picture of some of your opinions on ceilings of players. Will this guy start? All that type of stuff in regards to rookies. So you ready to talk some more Detroit Lions rookies here on the back half of the show?
Of course. Let's get to it.
All right, everybody. Listen to our sponsors, please. They really help out the show. And you know we're serving up that Kool-Aid here all day, every day.
Drink it in, man.
We'll be right back. Detroit Kool-Aid drinkers, I am fired up. I am excited to tell you about one of our new great sponsors. Now, by now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like a real NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? I mean, it's time to go see what the buzz in the Dynasty fantasy community is all about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, rookie drafts, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, and so much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Do you think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test your general manager skills for free in a mock free agency auction. So here's what I need all you guys to do. Head over to Reality Sports Online. You'll hear me talk about it on the show and call it RSO. Head over to Reality Sports Online and check them out right now. Everybody, I want to take a quick pause and tell you about my other Lions podcast. Now, you know, on this show, I serve up that Detroit Kool-Aid on Wednesdays and Fridays. But on my other podcast, that drops on Thursday mornings. That's called Believe, and that's spelled B-L-E-A-V in Lions, Believe in Lions with myself, and Lions legendary safety, Benny Blades. That's right, me and Benny Blades chop it up talking football. He's hilarious. He makes me laugh. We get in a bunch of arguments, and, you know, he talks about the U all the time. It's all about the U. It's all about the U. But Benny also talks about the Detroit Lions. He was a great player on the field. He has great stories. Love his football knowledge across the board. We have a bunch of fun. So everybody hit that subscribe button. Find it on your favorite podcast platform. Again, that's Believe in Lions, myself and Benny Blades on the Believe Podcasting Network. Check it out. We thank you so much for the support. What's going on, Detroit Kool-Aid drinkers? Thank you so much for listening to the show. This is always one of my favorite shows of the month, or when we get Logan on, it's tremendous. Like I say, you got to go check out his articles, all the different things he's writing about the Lions. Definitely saw him on some radio spots talking about the draft and whatnot. And like for me, I mean, gosh, the momentum just keeps building with this team of just like Dan freaking Campbell, sorry, I got to use his government. It's just so fun and so engaging. Brad Holmes seems to be really intelligent. I like his moxie as well. So just real fired up about this team, as I know a lot of fans are. And yeah, they got to go win on the football field, but it's just a really breath of fresh air. And this draft was like, oh man, good players at good value, positions of need with upside, things that we can build around. So just excited about it. And Logan, I got some questions for you here, man. So we'll just dive right into them. You know, the rookie camp just went down, and rather ask you, you know, what you thought about it, because, you know, they didn't have a quarterback. There wasn't anything really going down on the field. But I got some big picture questions about these rookies now that they're together and we know who's drafted. And before you know it, they'll be mingling in with the vets. So my first one to you is adding Sewell, you know, Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Penei Sewell. I think, you know, anywhere from 20 years old up to the aging vet is like 26, 27. Like, can this O-line be dominant in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it can be if Sewell pans out. And, you know, I feel pretty comfortable that he's going to be pretty good. Yeah, there might be some rookie growing pains, but I think everything's there. And we know what Taylor Decker is. He's not an elite left tackle, but he's, you know, on that second tier of fringe, like really solid type of tackles. And Frank Ragnow, I'd put him in the elite category. Now, the guard spots is where I do have a little concern. Jonah Jackson looked pretty good as a rookie, but my concern with him is I thought he was one of those pro-ready type of players where, again, that classic Bob Quinn draft pick of high floor, maybe not the highest ceiling. So I'm just hoping to see progression out of him, because I felt like he kind of hit a rookie wall last year where he looked really good and then kind of fell off a little bit, but not concerned about him too much. It's more of the right guard spot where it's with Vaitai. Who knows really how much that foot injury hampered him last year. It seemed like it did quite a bit, but he appears to be the starter at this time. But if all 5 of those players just play like you think they should play, I think they can be dominant and really help out the offense, especially if they get a run game going. It's only going to help out Goff as well.
Let me just calm your minor fears, Logan. Like, between Hal Vaitai, Crosby, if he stays, Stenberg, you know, whoever else, you can rotate a right guard. If that's your big worry, the right guard spot, and the other 4 have high draft capital and guys that have played at a high level, we got to feel pretty good about our O-line. And like your question, will Sewell pan? This is one of the, I mean, I have little to no worries about this guy. I mean, I think he's going to be dominant and fun to watch, and that's always hard to say at offensive tackle. The way he gets out and can move his feet and crush people, man, I think it's going to be really fun. I think they could be top 8, top 5 before you know it, so I can't wait to see it. Now, I threw out the nickname earlier, Big Denim. I mean, can Levi and McNeil, like, how good can these guys be? I mean, they were both taken, you know, high second round, high third round picks. People are saying, like, hey, this is the, you know, interior of our defensive line for years to come. Do you see that? Do you see them being a good pairing? And how good? Is this something that we're going to be talking about in a year or two? And like, wow, these guys are a problem inside. Or are we going to be looking back going, like, we got hype, but they're defensive tackles. They're not world beaters.
I think their lines are set up for a long time with these two guys, just because the way that they're going to be used, I think they're going to be played to their strength. And that's sometimes the biggest issue, is just where, you know, the circumstances surrounding rookies. Sometimes rookies can look a lot better than they really are, depending on where they're at. But with McNeil and Onwuzurike, it's like, I just feel like they're going to be asked to just wreak havoc, and they both have the ability to do that. And you put them together and you add in Brockers and, you know, maybe even Hand, Trey Flowers moving in kind of maybe a little bit more inside. And I think it's going to be a fairly strong, maybe a little bit better than people are giving the defensive line credit for at this point. And it's going to be in large part due to the gap shooters that are McNeil and Onwuzurike. And that's just how their defense operates, to really free up the linebackers and let the linebackers roam free. So I'm pretty pumped up about the defensive interior for Detroit.
That's a lot of bodies, a lot of beef up front. I mean, I think that, you know, we have not been able to get to the quarterback, but we're playing that scheme. So now you're going to see guys try and get up the field, try and get after the quarterback. You'll be able to rotate guys. I'm really excited. I just kind of need to see McNeil, how he's used and what he does on Sundays. Levi, I think, is going to be more than adequate at what he's doing, and a good player, the way they're going to use him and rotate him in and out and all that. So I'm just excited to see it. I'm excited to see all those big bodies and actually try to get after the quarterback for once. We haven't seen that in about, 3-4 years here in Detroit, if not longer, since we made that run and had that one defensive line that was dominant. That was quite a while ago, and we haven't had too many of them. So we talked about St. Brown a little bit earlier, so I guess I'll turn this question a little bit. We kind of both agreed that he might be an early starter. You had some questions about him. I'm drinking that Detroit Koolaid, pretty high on this kid from a mentality perspective. Like, do you think that because he's a receiver, because he might be used a lot early, and he can get open quick and kind of be Jared Goff's, one of his early targets here, depending if they add anybody else, do you think this is one the fans will really get behind because he might make some really fun plays early? And like I say, he's a receiver. People always seem to gravitate to those guys. You see him being a fan favorite or a guy that people are kind of like, wow, this guy's crazy value because maybe he makes plays earlier than some of the other guys do.
For sure. And the receiver position is obviously one of those spots where they can make plays and make an early impact. And it's like notable plays, whereas other positions, they might be doing things that just, casual fans watching, the game are like, oh, like I didn't see him do much, but then you turn on the film and you realize what they're doing. Whereas St. Brown, it's like, yeah, if he makes some catches, and I do think he's going to be heavily utilized, and Jared Goff likes his slot players. So there's the potential for Brown to really make an impact early and really probably draw on the fans being like, all right, like let's go. So I do agree that, early, I think St. Brown will probably be one of the rookies who pop the most, the quickest, I guess you can say.
And I think my favorite part about the St. Brown pick is, when we talked that I was a proponent of waiting on receiver. I felt like you could spend that resource other ways. The fact that they went big tackle, big defensive tackle, bigger defensive tackle, and then waited till early round 4 to get this really nice value at receiver. And the guy's so versatile too. We didn't get some lanky guy that can just go up over the top, or some little slot receiver runs 2-yard out routes all day. This guy can do a little bit of everything, and I think that'll complement the speed that we've added really nicely, because we have not had speed at the right wide receiver position in a long time. So it's going to look real new, and I just think the value is so good just to wait. Brad Holmes joked like, man, everybody get off my ass. I took a receiver. It was like, man, I love that you just kept waiting it out, and I feel like this guy was kind of like the last guy I really would have wanted. Now, there were some other guys I liked, but just great value there. So I really love it. I think the fans will love it, and I agree with you. I think he makes a few plays. People are going to be touting this as a tremendous pick, and I think he's got the mentality to be here for a long time, be impactful. So excited about that. Now, this next one, Benny Blades on my Believe in Lions on the Believe Podcasting Network, he wasn't so fond of the name Iffy. He said, man, if you're iffy, that's no good. Who's called somebody iffy? Well, I want to ask you, Logan Lamorandier, are you iffy or not iffy when it comes to iffy, or would you rather call him Melly, which I heard this weekend, which I thought was cool? So your thoughts maybe on the nickname, where you stand with this kid, 6'2", 200-plus pound corner. I mean, I'm not iffy. Are you?
I like the name Iffy, kind of. It's kind of catchy to say. And Melifonwu, that was one of the easier names for me to pronounce, because his older brother was a draft crush of mine, a few years back, who busted out. And that was one of my on-the-clock picks I made for the Lions. So, but I think, Iffy is, he's a little bit different. And anytime you have the cornerbacks that are 6'2", just taller guys, they're not going to be the most agile or quick of foot. Now, Melifonwu has some great explosion, and if used properly, I think he can really turn into something, because he's got some pretty good ball skills too for his size, which I really like. Like, as a cornerback, I feel like the Lions need playmakers and people that can get their hands on the ball. And Melifonwu can do that, but he's not going to be someone necessarily who's going to be able to keep up and with the smaller, shiftier players. I think he's truly an outside corner, man press, kind of cover 3 type of guy. And that's how I envision the Lions will use him. And he has potential to develop into more, but you've seen plenty of taller players that excel, but as far as the foot quickness goes, he might struggle a little bit with the smaller guys. But again, Just use them properly, and you're not going to have to worry about that.
Logan, every time you come on the show, I mean, I like the analysis. I like you always bring the analytics. You bring the strong takes and opinions. But sometimes I got to hammer you for the entertainment value. Is it iffy or is it melly? I mean, if you had to pick one, which one would you go with? I know sometimes you like to ride the fence.
I like iffy.
Okay. So I will tell next time I see or text or speak with Benny Blades, I will say, hey man, we got more people that aren't iffy on the nickname Iffy. Okay. I know you think you can't be cool in South Florida if your name's Iffy, but I think it's swaggy. I like it too. So I think he could be really fun. I heard some people saying he could be a star type potential. Well, the fact that we just added that corner, another body with some upside with some of our other young guys, I mean, you just got to love the youth and upside of these corners. Now they got to go do it. Now they got to go lock somebody up, play with mentality, play in somebody's coat pocket instead of that ridiculous Swiss cheese type defense we've been watching where they're playing way off and aren't up on people and can't get their hands on the football. So I'm definitely not iffy on this pick. I thought it was another great value spot too. It was like late in the third. It was just like you looked back at the board, you're like, wow, it was just a really good corner with unique traits at that spot that nobody could really argue with. Same with the St. Brown pick and same with this next pick, Logan. Derek Barnes. Now, I've said he spells it wrong. I mean, you got to go with the short version, Derek, like yours truly, but I won't hold that against them. I mean, Derek Barnes, they moved way up to get this guy. He was on some people's radar, other people not so much. I've fallen in love with this guy from a mentality, personality. The more you watch his film, the more you see him explode to the football. You see him diagnose and shoot his gun and tackle people, unlike some of the other players the Lions have had recently, Jared Davis and others, who I stood up for and who I thought would be good. He never could put it together. I'm not sure what he'll do with the Jets, but Derek Barnes is a guy that is just a tremendous kid from top to bottom. If Spielman likes him, I like him type of thing. And I think this guy could be my favorite pick out of this draft class when it's all said and done. I could see him starting and playing early. I could see him making plays, and I could see him wearing that captaincy before you know it. What do you think? Like, can he start at middle linebacker early, or is it going to be learn behind Collins, learn behind this guy, and then next thing you know, it's a year or so down the road before we really see him unleashed?
Yeah, I think he'll probably learn behind Collins for at least a little bit, especially if he's the middle linebacker. Jamie Collins is calling plays. It might be tough to take off the field, but you look at what the Rams did last year. They were constantly rotating linebackers, and I was really high on Barnes as well. He was actually on my draft wants list before the draft, but I was only going 5 players by round, and I had to cut him off the list because I was like, all right, who are my top 5, like mid-round players? But Derek Barnes would have been my 6th, and the only reason for that was just because he's still very raw in coverage. He was a former edge player, like a hybrid defender that played solely at middle linebacker last year, and in a way, let me explain myself. He's a lot like Jared Davis in the fact that once he's on track, he can track down ball carriers, but he doesn't miss the tackles like Jared Davis does. He was very reliable with tackling, but he's a freight train hitting guys. And you can just tell he wants to play physical. Now, like Jared Davis, Barnes is athletic, but he has some growing to do in pass coverage, and it's a passing league. And I thought the Lions could use the pass coverage linebacker. And sometimes just because a guy is athletic doesn't always mean that they can learn how to cover people. But again, if they use Barnes properly, I think in his first year, I think he's a player that people can really like, because I think he's going to really stick some running backs, and it's going to have the big hits and going to look really good. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that pick. All right. And I was totally fine with the Lions trading up to get him.
Logan, I think it's becoming a running gimmick on the show. You have compared so many linebackers to Jared Davis. I mean, it goes all the way back to Devin White. And then every time I bring up an athletic, I said Jamin Davis. You're like, he's kind of like Jared Davis. Now Derek Barnes is like Jared Davis to you. All these guys, like, he doesn't have to be a stalwart in coverage, because what I feel the Lions are going to do is they're going to drop iffy down there to cover backs, tight ends, slot players, whatever it may be. Tracy Walker has some skills in that area. We saw Will Harris get burned time after time, but he consistently would come down and either try to cover, so maybe they stopped doing that with him. But like, maybe they play Derek Barnes in the middle and let him patrol that, and with the number 55 on, and maybe they let go old man Jamie Collins. I mean, he's supposed to be Mr. Coverage. Like, maybe he goes and gets people that in a coverage aspect, and they play them both at the same time. So I wouldn't get too hung up on it. I also laugh every time you compare people to Jared Davis, so that's a funny thing here on the show. Probably like 10 years from now, we'll be talking about a draft like, man, that guy's like Jared Davis. Come on. And I'll laugh.
I didn't compare Jamin Davis to Jared Davis. I do remember Devin White.
Yeah.
I definitely compared Devin White to Jared Davis because I do still think they're similar. They're okay in coverage, but they're really good at getting to the quarterback when they blitz, and they miss tackles, and they're athletic.
Oh, no. I brought up Jamin Davis. Oh, man, he's athletic like Jared Davis, but I just don't know about some of the things he does out on the football field. I mean, it's like clockwork. You got to have an easy button with you on this whole thing. Like, I don't know. I mean, you can't be a perfect linebacker. You can't be all-world coverage, all-world tackler, all-world off the field. And here's the other thing that I always got to beat Logan up on. Puts no stock in the person. It's all about the shuttles, the 40 time, how many times you bench. This guy he's a leader, man. I'm telling you, it didn't take me long, about 5 minutes into his first interview, where I said, this guy's a leader of the defense. I mean, as bad as Will Harris was, I still think Will Harris has crazy leadership ability too. He just has to play a little bit better. So I'm on board with the person. I know you don't take that into consideration, but I'm telling you, this is the guy. This is if he's just good on the football field, he's going to be great in the community and even better as a locker room guy, I think. So can't wait to see it. All right, last one. I mean, your time's precious. We always go over because we just love talking football. Jefferson at the end of the 7th round. I mean, I've been on record on my previous shows saying I was done with Kerryon. The Lions agreed with me. They booted him. I mean, right when they took Jefferson, I thought, good. Now we got a 3 or 4 running back with some juice and some ability rather than a guy with no knees anymore and doesn't love the game. I mean, are you on board with me with this? Don't you think this just adds some juice, some fresh legs, and a kid that had some talent? He was a sleeper for me in fantasy when it came to running backs. He's just a football player that I think should have went earlier, and when he was sitting there, I kind of liked the Lions were like, screw it, we're just going to take the running back. I mean, this guy might do some real fun things in the football field. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, where they got him at, I thought it was solid value, and it makes more sense if they weren't comfortable with Kerryon, and I wasn't necessarily super thrilled with Kerryon like as a third back. Yeah, he can pass block, but as far as just that burst he used to have, he didn't really see it, and the injuries, I think, kind of caught up with him, and I think that you can get a lot cheaper players to do what Kerryon does, especially when Jamal Williams, the running back the Lions just brought in, can pass block as well. So where did that leave Kerryon? And I think Jamar Jefferson, he has some of the best vision in the class, and his long speed seems to be fine. He didn't have the fastest 40, but when you throw on the film, it does seem like he can pull away from guys, and he's not super quick, and he's more of a violent runner. When I looked at his missed tackle rate, like it wasn't anything special, but I think he's just going to be a solid, complete back. He's reliable catching the ball as well. So as a third back on a cheap, 7th round contract, and just give him a shot, see what he's got. Kerryon probably wasn't going to be around next year anyway. He's going to be in the last year of his contract. So I think it is wise to give the young guys like Jefferson and maybe even Rakeem Boyd, and guys, the younger players, a shot and just see what they have.
I'm excited for it. I think there's other ways they could have went it, but I like it. I'm curious to see if they add a vet, because I'd be pretty cool just to roll with these 3 as your top 3 guys, and then maybe a throw in, or you got 2 fullbacks, I think, on the roster right now, just sort of a big body blocker if that's what they want to go. But between Swift, Williams, and And Jefferson, I think that could be a fun, young, inexpensive running back core to roll out there. So, Logan, man, I knew when we talked draft, we were just going to be all over the map. I loved everything you brought to the table this week on the Koolaid Cast. I mean, talking about the players, giving some analysis. You had some good opinions. I had to beat you up a little bit, which is kind of like I just have to do that on the show to almost everybody. So don't take it personally, please. It's all in good fun. I mean, gosh, it's fun having you on the show, man. You're putting out great content, and just really appreciate having you on.
I know, man. The time limit. One of these days we'll make it happen. But talking Lions football, I just can't keep it too short.
Good stuff, man. Everybody, we're going to get up out of here. But before we do, I mean, sometimes I do this on the show. I've got exclusive audio that I thought I'd save for the end of the show. And we're going to get up out of here on Friday. I'm going to be talking about the NFL schedule release that came out. You know, the Lions, I got lots of opinions on their schedule and who's on there and what it might look like. I might even give you some way too early predictions. We'll see what I come up with on a Friday. But I've got exclusive audio to end the show of Dan freaking Campbell, our head coach, talking to the rookies, telling them what his expectations are. So everybody, we'll get up out of here for this week. I'm going to leave you with this, but drink that Detroit Kool-Aid. We'll catch you on Friday. This is Dan freaking Campbell talking to the rookies. Take care, everybody.
We're going to bite a kneecap off. We're going to smile at you. We're going to take your other kneecap. We're going to smile at you. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. We're going to be the last one standing. All right. That's going to be the mentality. You've had enough of that.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.